Leadership, purpose, service. This is Fulfilling the Dream with Wayman Britt.
Well, welcome to Fulfilling the Dream. We're with Michael Williams today, and we're hoping that you will love the conversation. And we're into spring already, and my hope is that we can get out and play some golf soon. We're happy that you're with us today, and we're hoping that you will enjoy our show. Michael Williams has been my friend for a long time. We grew up together in Flint, Michigan, and we played on the same basketball team together. We won back-to-back state championships. And he went on and had a wonderful career in health and human services, and also became the mayor of Albion, Michigan. And Michael also is a Hall of Famer for Albion College, was inducted to the Albion College Hall of Fame in 1995. And he's got a wonderful family. I had a chance to meet his mother and his aunts. Mm-hmm. I never knew them when we grew up in Flint, but what a wonderful family. And he's done a magnificent job with Orchard Children's Services. I was with him this past year before he retired from Orchard Children's Services. Dave Bing was there. Greg Kelser was there. They all celebrated his time at Orchard Children's Services. Orchard Children's Services is the largest health and human services agency in the state of Michigan. And they do wonderful work on the east side, all throughout the state of Michigan. And Michael served on numerous boards. He's got lots of experience leading people. And most importantly, working with young people and helping them to recover from whatever tragedy or whatever issues that they face in life, to get them back on their feet. And that's what our show is about. It's about fulfilling the dreams of our young people, of our old people too. How can we help make sure that every life fulfills its potential? So welcome, Michael, to our show.
It's a pleasure to be here.
So how have you been?
I've been well. Reuniting with you has been a blessing in a lot of ways.
Yeah,
so I appreciate that.
For me too, my friend. And how is your mom and everybody doing over in Flint?
My mom's fantastic. She'll be 90 this year. She still has all her facilities and able to maintain the household still, and lets me know that she's my mom. So she still makes sure that she's telling me what to do and when to do it and how to do it, and always building that gospel foundation in which we all need to make sure that we understand what's happening.
Yeah, I saw her at your event, your retirement event, and your aunt, I believe, was there. And I could see why you are the man you are today, because of that upbringing that you got. They right there in your corner, man. And, we had Lenny Wilkins on the show, and he talked about his mom. Oh, yeah. And how much she meant to him growing up. And my mother, Mamie, meant a lot to me too. She had this quote. She says it was on the wall of her home in North Carolina when she passed away, and it said, "Love is like a butterfly. It goes wherever it pleases, and it pleases wherever it goes."
Oh, that's beautiful.
Yeah, I talk about it in my book, and I could see that love from your mom. And, she's right there for you. So I want to talk about you though. How does this happen that you become the president, CEO of Orchard's Children's Services? How did that transpire? I lost track of you for a while.
Right.
And then we saw each other at a meeting when you came up and we were talking about how do we change the child welfare system so that we could reduce the number of kids in child welfare, right?
Absolutely.
And length of stay.
I remember that meeting very well.
Yeah, you came up to the county building, and that was a great meeting. But I just hadn't kept track. I did not know that you had gone on to be so successful and impactful. Tell me about that story.
Well, again, as you indicated, my story started in this place. I was the first one born in Flint, Michigan. My parents originally came from Georgia, Americas. And that's why I was so excited when you told me about your book, because Fulfilling Dreams it makes sense be titled that. And after graduation, it was a good time. I would be remiss if I didn't say thank you. Being a sophomore You know, at that time, high school was 10th through the 12th. And you all seemed so much older than us. And so being a part of that process with Bill Frieder, seeing how hard you all worked, you and your Terry and Joel and Brick and Dennis, and we aspired to be like you all. And I think that's what's missing a lot. We allow people to be our models that were not as old as sometimes people think a mentor has to be. So when I graduated, I was the first one to go to college. So I didn't have anyone to identify with the struggle. And I chose Albion College because at that time you could transfer. I had gotten a full ride to the University of Pennsylvania.
Oh, wow.
And because I wanted to go to the Wharton School of Business.
Yeah.
But with the things happening at home, I wanted to stay close. I hadn't heard of Albion, to be honest with you.
Yeah.
And what occurred was, as an African-American man, I went into an environment where it's the first time in my life I was a minority.
Ooh.
And as you know, they went from the Flint Northern that you graduated from to the new Flint Northern, that's what they called it. And that bifurcation helped me to understand a different culture.
Yeah.
And the culture I was in was great.
Yes.
So I don't want to, because Flint was basically a north side, south side environment.
It was.
So that led to me thinking, what can I do? And I knew education was key. But I also didn't realize how education can impact your life. And when as a freshman, I would kid, but I was also very serious. When I was at Flint Northern, they would say, who discovered America? And I would write Christopher Columbus, and I would write it properly, and I would get an A.
Huh.
Well, in college, they said, why did he discover America? And I saw these people writing, and all I knew was that he got lost.
Oh.
And I felt diminished in a lot of ways, because even though I felt I had a good education, I was amazed with what I didn't know.
Yeah.
And the thing that really promoted me was why. We don't ask why enough, because that is, to me, the key to understand.
Wow.
And I learned that very quickly. And, you know, I had a chance to play with basketball. Basketball was a vehicle.
Yeah.
But a vehicle is something you get into to get to a destination. It's not something you stay.
Oh, I'm going to write that one down.
It's not something you stay in.
Yes.
You know, and
I
used everything that I
vehicle.
knew as a vehicle to get to where I wanted to go. And you don't know where you will land, but you got to have a destination.
What was your destination? Where did you see yourself landed? Did you see yourself leading an organization? Did you see yourself becoming the mayor of Albion? Did you see that when you were growing up?
Absolutely not.
What motivated you? What propelled all of that?
Well, a couple of things. Number one, when I graduated, it was three options. There was the Army, there was the factory, and there was college.
Yeah.
I spent the summer in a factory and knew that was not what I wanted to do.
I did too.
It was good money.
I did it for 2 summers. Yes.
Oof.
That's a bone crusher.
Yeah, but I applauded those people that made that sacrifice because I understood that. But secondarily, I really looked at my upbringing,
right,
and what were the key parts of success, as you want to deem it success, and that is really understanding how you have to treat people. Oh. That was the reward. And my goal was to be a lawyer. And I was political science history major, pre-law, graduated, got accepted, but I got a summer job at this place called Star Commonwealth.
Huh.
And not wanting to go back to Flint, because in Flint I was identified as an athlete.
Yeah.
And I wanted to be a man that's committed to something greater than basketball. And Albion, first time I was a minority. In that sense, I was the only African American on the team.
Right.
And it was different. But I learned a lot. I learned about how vast this nation can be and how rich it could be. I remember they said we're having an icebreaker, and I'm from Flint. So I put my platforms on. I put my multicolored pants on with the big cuffs. I put on the shirt that had the collar down long.
Yeah.
And I go there, and it was a square dance.
Oh, my gosh.
That's exactly what I said. And I'm like, do-si-do.
Do-si-do.
And I'm like, I called my mom. I said, Mom, I can't deal with this environment.
You made a mistake.
And she said, you can't come home.
Huh.
And I'm the youngest, but I'm a mama's boy.
Right.
I'm like, I can't come home. She said, no, you finish this year. Then if you want to change, but you're going to finish that year. You're not going to quit school. So I was very disappointed, and feeling down. And I remember distinctly, I shared with the coach that I don't think it's the right environment for me. What it also impacted me, when we freshmen come early. Yeah. So I come in, I have a roommate, European, and we talk, have a good time. His dad comes in, sees me, and he walks right out. Then about 20 minutes later, he asked his son to come out. And I never saw that kid again. So I didn't have any roommate. But I didn't think about it. I thought about, okay, I got a room to myself. But I didn't realize what was occurring.
Wow.
And so as times went on and I got understand, and then I told him I was going to leave. And so the president of the college, I never forget this, I moved in with my roommate, with Mario Daniels. Right. He's also from Flint. He was the first black CPA in Flint. He recently passed through cancer. Mm-hmm. But it was a knock on our door. We had the Moses, we had Isaac Hayes up on our walls. We had the nets, because they moved me into an apartment. And,
yes.
Knocked on the door, boom, boom, boom. And he said, I said, come on in if you're black. And it was the president of the university. And I'll never forget that. He came in, he said, let me tell you something. You can help us more than you can help us. We can help you. We need a young man like you to help this college. And so the challenge is what drove me. And I said, what does that mean? So I started recruiting people like Milt Barnes, Eric Harvey from Flint, Gary Nichols from Flint, because we can achieve if we have standards and expectations. I always tell people I don't believe in rules, because rules are for safety only. Expectations are to continue. Expectation that you do your best. And doing your best is not measured necessarily by the championship. It's about the effort you put out there, as you know. Mm-hmm. And coming from the success that we had in Flint, I lost more games my freshman year in college than I lost my whole high school career. And so I was not going to tolerate that. But moving forward, when I graduated, I saw the world differently. Scary, lonely, but I understood that I have a responsibility to represent me as a man. And when I start working with kids, I'm like, that's what people did for me, directly and indirectly. I learned what to do, what not to do. Dennis, I learned what not to do. But it was
Dennis
those are the
Menace.
It was the lessons that if you pick it up and you see the people around you, you can learn. But now I always tell people, people come before public. Yeah. People come before politics, even in the dictionary.
Yes.
So why are we putting people second to those things? And so as time went on, I was able to meet this unbelievable young lady. Because I swore I would never meet anybody from this small little town that was basically an African-American town that I'd never heard of. I said, this town too small. I'm never going to marry a girl from Albion. So I go to Lansing. I become a coach. We won a championship at the high school level at Albion. And I see this beautiful lady. And I'm like, who was that? It was a family gathering.
Wow.
So I got called out to do a little interview, and I come back in with the team. And I said, who was that lady? And the team said, we don't know. And I'm saying, well, it had to be somebody's family. Well, I found out it was the biggest kid on the team. When he walked out, he said, don't tell the coach that's my sister, because I don't want the coach to marry my sister.
For real?
He's been my brother-in-law for 40 years.
Wow.
And it's been great. And what we did and from a relationship perspective, I also learned that divorces were happening. Yeah. So me and my wife made a decision to treat every year like a day. And we have a book that said we'll be married for 2 months, which means 60 years. So on our anniversary, we sit down and we say, what did I do yesterday to make you happy? And we have to write in a journal.
Oh, wow.
And it keeps it fresh.
Wow.
You know, I go to places now and my wife looks the same as she did when I married her, and I'm with my daughter and my wife, and they'll say, well, are these your daughters? I say, yeah, but I sleep with one of them. And I say, I'm not from that South. But it's really understanding. But then crack happened.
Yes.
In our community.
Yes.
And I was
all over America.
And I was concerned about my daughter seeing people that look like me only on TV when it's almost like there's one guy that they interview when there's a crime.
Yes.
And then we started labeling things crime-infested neighborhoods.
Right.
Safe neighborhoods. And we didn't have that bifurcation. We didn't have special ed. And I'm not knocking those processes, but those processes really diminished because when you were in school, if somebody couldn't read, they would say, Wayman, go over there and help build.
That's right.
And so we helped each other because we knew we were all one. We were all Vikings.
That's right.
And I think we've lost that sense of pride. And so I said, I'm not going to allow my daughter to see African-American men not doing well. So I said, I'm going to strive. And then I said, I can help this city. And I ran for city council, and I started learning how decisions are made.
Yeah.
And, but also more importantly, she saw me in position, and I became the mayor. And it was interesting too. And as a mayor, you also have the right to perform weddings. And one of the stories I share in this true story, I was supposed to perform a wedding for a couple. So the phone rings, and my daughter's probably at that time, about 6, and we had taught her how to answer the phone. So she answered the phone. Hello, Williams resident, may I help you? And I don't know what this person said, but my daughter slammed the phone down. I'm like, what's wrong? She said, I want to talk to you, Dad. She goes to her room. So my wife comes home, and I said, Jasmine is upset. And so she said, well, I'll go talk to her. So she comes out laughing. I'm like, what's wrong? She said, when she answered the phone, the lady said, your dad's supposed to marry me on Saturday.
She thought that you were going to marry the lady that was on the phone.
So she thought I was being deceptive of my wife.
Creepers. So that's where your wife came out there laughing about it because she understood that it was you, the mayor, that's going to marry this person.
But we don't realize our words affect.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Your dad's supposed to marry me. And it turned into a joke, so cool. But it's like
that's cool.
So I kid my daughter. I said, if I was having a relationship, you shouldn't tell your mama.
Right. Wow.
It's
the words make a huge difference in people's life. Let's go back to that comment that was made by that president to you about how more important you are to the university than the university is to you. That he realized that those words that he said to you, and how they impacted you and perhaps propelled you, that you have value, you have purpose, you have a reason to be at that school. And then, when you do get those negatives that come your way, people that entreat you with, the bias and the prejudice, that doesn't deter you. You somehow figured out how to rise above it.
Yes.
But it has to be those words that are implanted in your ear and then get in your mind and get into your heart to say, I'm not going to allow the negatives that are going to come. But you got to hear those positives every once in a while, don't you?
Absolutely. Absolutely. Well, your book is biblical to me because it's a journey that, coming from where you came from.
Yeah.
Coming to a city like Flint and what you established. Again, people need to really build. I tell everyone, every building that's built came from a small grain of sand.
That's right.
I had a conversation with Mark Cuban. I was fortunate to meet him, and he said something that I never forget. He said, he writes his children around, and he said, everything here was created. Whether it's by a greater power or a man.
This is Mark Cuban, the owner of the Dallas Mavericks.
Yeah.
He said, what again?
Everything here was created. And he told his kids, what are you going to create?
Ooh. What are you going to create?
Yeah. Because that's what stands. Our careers are important and we help create those, but if we don't understand how we embellish those things, and how do we take things for granted,
And you're here to create.
Right. That's our mission.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
And so I followed those paths everything can be, whether it's Greg, Dave Bing. I went to Dave Bing camp as you went to Dave Bing camp.
Yes.
And, going to Pennsylvania.
Yeah, Pocono Pines.
Pocono Pines. And being up in that mountain, if you missed a shot, the ball would go down. But seeing how he managed it from Syracuse. Unbelievable. And it's interesting because he just got put into the Hall of Fame, whatever. But it's 50 years later.
Yeah.
So I started really looking at all of the vices that were, whether it's Richard Pryor, Muhammad Ali.
Right.
And I say this, and I say this respectfully, they became more famous when they didn't have a voice.
Ooh.
They were on the stages.
Ooh.
Up until that time, they were controversial. They were militant.
Yes.
But when they couldn't speak, they became trophies, whether it's shaking at the Olympics.
Yes.
But 30 years, 40 years ago, he said, I'm not going to Vietnam. Mm. And whether I agree or disagree with that doesn't make a difference, but he had a stand that disrupted his ability to do it. Then you take away what he did from boxing. Mm. And so I felt my journey was a lot easier than the people that wrote the path before me. That's why I make sure I vote. I make sure I understand. I make sure I stay in connection with people that make a difference. That's why reuniting with 32, it was important for me to understand that it didn't start with me and won't end with me, but I won't be a part of it. Whether I'm on the 5th floor of a skyscraper or the penthouse, it's a building. And our culture is so important to me. And I'm concerned. I'm really concerned about the level. Having been in child welfare, people ask me, why did you leave Star? Because I did well there. And I said, the children used to tell me one thing. They said, I wish someone would have helped me before I got here. And I was trained to say, you're here, deal with it, which is a terrible response. Yeah. And so what I learned from that was, I've got to help them earlier. And that's what led me to Orchards. It was taking babies. It was taking young people that were in foster care, reuniting them before they get into jail,
The big system.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
And it's pretty hard to get out once you get in. Oh. Once you get into the juvie, and then you move on from there to Max, to Maxie or some other place that,
right.
You get jaded, and
well, you're hearing your neighborhood is bad. You hear pipeline to prison. They thought they were entrepreneurs. I grew up, and again, not dating myself, but the reality was marijuana was a big deal. But
it was.
Everybody that sold marijuana mostly worked.
That's true.
That was a hobby.
That was a side game.
Yeah, and we had, I hate to say this, but we had gangsters with ethics. If I went to a place I shouldn't be, as you would know, they would say, "Hey, Mike, come here. What you doing here?"
That's right.
This is not for you.
That's true.
And
That's true.
I
had gangsters in my family.
I know. I know. And we all do.
But you're absolutely right. My brother Ray, I would call him a semi-gangster. He wasn't a real throwdown gangster, but I tell you what, you wouldn't mess with him.
No.
And but you're absolutely right. He would always look out for us, my brother Jay. And the nephews, all of us, they held us in high regard. Your life is such an example of how one can take a look at someone else's life. You talked about Dave Bing. I admire Dave Bing. He was one of my mentors, if you will, from afar. Even though we went to his camp, he came to our basketball bus, right?
Yes.
When we won the championship. Mm-hmm. Him and Lim Barney came,
absolutely,
right?
Lim is really ill right now.
Is he?
So
oh
really
my gosh! But those guys set the mark for us, And then, of course, hopefully, we set the mark for the younger guys coming behind us.
Right.
Look at Mateen Cleaves and Glenn Rice and all those guys that came after us.
Absolutely.
Who were successful. Let's hope that we can continue to motivate our young people, as well as motivate other people to do what they can. Because if we don't use our talents and our gifts to strengthen, motivate, inspire other people, then the world's going to be a worse place to live in my opinion. I think that's what we're supposed to do now that we're in these later years, into our 60s and 70s. We're supposed to give all that knowledge and wisdom back. So, You bring a lot to the table in that way, and I'm thrilled to have your reacquaintance again.
Absolutely.
And to learn from you, because I observed what was happening at your event, and the people that came, and how you carried yourself, and how you communicated, and how you interacted with my wife Dinah. Such a loving, respectful manner that you bring to the table, and it's wonderful. You have gained a lot of knowledge and insight. So what's next?
Well, again, my responsibility is while I retired from Orchards, I didn't retire from life. And
Yes.
I want to make sure that I do all I can. This process, when you called,
Right.
I was honored to sit down with you and talk about things, because sometimes we don't say thank you enough. I had a friend who passed away, Delbert Gray. He wrote a book. It's called Thank You. That's the name of his book. And he talks about the gift of thank you. The whole book is about that. It helps me to understand the appreciation from waking up on the day. And we go through things. I killed my daughter because, I played football, basketball, baseball, I ran track. I did all of them. But I didn't realize because I didn't want to go home. My dad had some issues that you don't know about. He worked, he was functional, but on weekends, he
did like my father did.
Yeah. And that's why that movie Fences was so, I could relate.
I understand that.
When Denzel was saying,
Denzel Washington.
you don't need to be doing that. You can just be like me. Let's go get a job. And it was tough. It was tough. But when I saw you all go down that college path, I mean, because Flint didn't have a lot of that.
We didn't have that.
Almost your whole team got scholarships.
Yes.
Whether they took advantage of it or not,
Yes.
it's a different issue.
Yes.
And then see Terry Furlow, who I knew since he was almost a neighbor.
Right.
So, he's a couple years older than me, but I went to school with his brother Earl, and seeing this little quiet guy become this.
Yeah, this major star.
Yeah. And
leading scorer in the Big Ten,
Right.
and get drafted in the first round by the Philadelphia 76ers. And what
happened though? It's like that. It was almost too much for me to understand how what people would call success could get in the way of success.
That's true.
And because you would think he's a pro, he's got money, he's got this, and not the money that he make in a day, but back then it was still a lot of money. And just to be gone, it showed me the
Too
value.
soon.
Oh, 25.
Too soon.
And and then have a foundation.
He and Campy Russell came to my wedding, and
Oh yeah.
I don't know if that was the last time I saw Terry, but it was one of the last times I saw him. He was so full of joy and everything. He's always happy and hip happening and so cool. Like a lot of the brothers from Flint were. But he had that magic about him. He was always life of the party.
Always,
chucking it up. And I remember one time, I don't know if you remember this, but he and I got into a little tussle.
Oh yeah.
Because he
Scared
and
me.
Dennis were fooling around in practice.
Uh-huh.
We had to run wind sprints over and over and over again because they were goofing off.
Right. Especially Dennis.
And then I went to the water fountain. I talk about it in my book. I went to the water fountain, and Terry was there, and he skeeted water him, and I lost it at that point. And Frieder pulled us to the side. He pulled me to the side and says, Wayman, you can't do that. I said, what do you mean? He's goofing off. He's skeeting water on me, from his mouth and all of that. That's nasty and all. He says, but Wayman, you can't do that. He says, come on, let's go back here. And he told me that you're an example to the other guys. You're the returning guy. You're the captain of the team. You got to set an example. This is not the type of behavior. And he talked about good sportsmanship and overlooking these guys, I'm like, but I did that. And in spite of the fact that there were these antics going on, things that unnerved me, I realized that it wasn't about me. It was about the team. And my job was to get the best out of each and every member of that team. And we all scored in double figures. It wasn't just one of us, the starting five. And then Raymond Bridges, he came off the bench. And so what I realized from that moment on was that the power of teamwork, power of, overlooking faults and realizing there's a bigger goal out there in life. It's not about you. It's about the team. It's about the community. It's about the family. It's about other people.
Yes.
It's not about you.
Right.
And that's what paved my way. And I see similar things that happen to you. You know, you're serving your community, the mayor of Albion, and then the leader of, you know, the largest child welfare agency in the state of Michigan, and doing all that you could to help make these kids' lives more complete.
Yeah, and I think you said it correctly, and I do remember that.
You remember that tussle?
Oh, yeah. Because, again, you guys were bigger than life to us, even though you were just 2 years older than us. And when Terry and Wayman, man, it was like, but Frida did that with all of us. He was just non-intimidating.
Yeah, nerdy guy.
Yeah, who dragged his right foot.
Yeah, he did.
Who wore the same clothes.
Those gray pants.
Yeah. And his wife, I went to his closet. I don't know if you ever went to his house, saw his closet.
I never saw his closet.
It was just like 7 pair of gray pants.
Same thing.
He didn't. He said
very simple.
He didn't want to spend time thinking about what he was going to wear. And
really?
like, yeah.
I never knew that.
Oh yeah. Frida was.
You know, he called the other day, and he's
coming. Is he going to come?
No, he's not going to come to the induction into the African American Hall of Fame there in Flint. But he did send a note for me to read, and I'm going to read that in his stead. And you know, he says that our team was one of the most special teams that he's ever been around. Now, he's coached at Michigan. He's coached at Arizona State, and he's been around the country. He's interacted with lots of people, and he talks about our Flint Northern team being one of the best teams of all time. You were part of that team, Michael.
Yeah, but what is sad is that that's just now being. I was talking to Eric Harvey on the way down here. He's a part of that. And he said, I cannot believe that team, it's like Dave Bing 50 years later. You guys impacted, the culture of Flint was so great. The gyms were filled. There was never a safety issue. There might be a fight, but there was never a death.
That's true.
And what occurred is that the economics of life kind of blinded people. It's not the money you make, it's how you use what you make. And we spent a lot of time with our young men, because I really believe that I've got to build that back up, and my boys become my boys.
Yeah,
they're mine. You know, like you became Bill Frida became an adjunct to your family.
Right.
You know, your mom thanks him. Your not your mom, your dad, your brothers.
Right.
And that's what good coaches make a difference. And now the dynamics as we talked about, there's a selfishness that we couldn't allow ourselves to get into. It was all about what can I do to make things better. Yeah. Not what can I, it was when I came to Detroit, it was a game that says, don't make it, take it. That was their motto. And they would, that stealing was how they, why we got to work when we can just take it. And I would talk to the kids about when you go in a person's home, that's personal because that's our biggest investment. Yes. So in the car a second. And they was like, we never thought about that.
Wow. What they were doing.
Yeah. And as time went on, then I started recognizing graduation rates of my kids. I told my workers, if they don't graduate, you haven't done your job. Wow. And so we went from whatever we were to over 94% of the kids in Flint and Detroit graduated. Right. And that's way higher than the statistics in those cities. Right. They're like at 40%. Wow. And no one's talking about it. No one said that's how many people didn't graduate from Northern? I mean, it was majority of our class graduated.
Yeah, it's true. Back in the day. Yeah. Yeah, we had a wonderful environment.
Yeah, you couldn't walk around the street on school day.
No. Michael, you just made a statement. You said my kids. And I heard this earlier today. I'm a part of the University Preparatory Academy's board, and we're moving ahead with a new renovation of the school to add a gymnasium and a health fitness area. Great. And I was there talking to one of the staffers, and they were talking about the fact that they said that the principal talks about those children as my children, not the children. And you made that comment. What impact do you think that has on the way that they feel? And then also, what impact does that have on the staff that are also assisting you in making sure that environment is a wholesome environment? That's an environment those kids can grow up and they can be successful one day.
Well, I think one thing that children aren't given credit for, they know what's genuine. They know what's real. So as you know, there was also universal talk back then. And I say this very respectfully. There's not anyone over 40, I don't care if you're white, black, Jewish, Protestant, Baptist, there's a certain phrase I can tell you, there's certain things I can tell you that was universal. And that is, the parents would say, I bought you in, and what would they say next?
Take you out.
Right. So that was it showed you that the level of respect or fear can be an asset.
Can be, yes.
You know, so we were afraid to go to jail.
Yes, we were.
We were taught to be police resistant.
That's right.
You know, it's not being a punk or challenged, and that's a terrible word that they used to use back in our day.
But weak.
But right.
Yeah.
That's a level of respect, and so if they're my kids, then you can't hurt them. You're not going to mess with them, including the system, including it, and your upbringing. It's not going to be an excuse for your long-term goal. That's I learned what to do and what not to do from people. And I said, I'm going to take what to do and learn what not to do and teach that.
Yes.
And it's worked. And when my workers ask, I told them, when they ask you who you work for, don't say Orchards Children's Services. So you work for your family.
Wow.
But you work at Orchards.
Wow.
And that perspective helps you, because too many times we let where we are become who we are. And if you let that become, then you have no destination. So you have to keep striving to be better, to be the best you can be.
Yeah.
You know, I'm not going to go on the court anymore, but I can teach you how to shoot. I can teach you how to game. I can teach you how it works. I know the dynamics.
Right.
So your roles change.
Yes.
It's like being a son, to being a brother, to being a father, to being a grandfather.
Yes.
All those are different roles.
Yes.
And the way you accept them has a lot to do with your ability to be effective. And I refuse not to be effective in whatever I do. I refuse to allow somebody to define me just by the skin color. But I'm proud of the skin color. But I also don't diminish. And Orchards was a very interesting journey because it started with the National Council of Jewish Women.
Oh, that's right.
And I knew very little about the Jewish culture. And you know that there were stereotypes that you learn over the years. And I remember scheduling something during their holiday season. And I'm like, it was Christmas for me.
Right.
And I got calls. You're being disrespectful of. I'll never make that mistake again.
Right.
So I got a Jewish calendar because I had to be respectful of where I was at.
That's right.
But also I taught them about what I came from.
That's
too.
right.
You know, I went to a bar mitzvah. And the guy invited me, and I took a camera in there. He said, "You can't take pictures in here." I said, "We take pictures of everything we do." But he didn't do it in a demeaning way. It's teaching me how to be respectful of
and value other
things.
people and their traditions and their cultures and so forth and so on.
It's so great out here.
Yes.
I mean, you can never complete it. The journey will always be there. You know, like you said, we're almost in our 70s.
Right.
And but learning still what drives us. I mean, you don't have to be on that board. You don't have to.
No.
But why?
Yeah, you do it because the good Lord wants you to do something to help other people. That's why you do these things.
Right.
And if you turn those things down, I feel guilty. I feel guilty when I'm not applying myself in the way of helping other people. Now, I want to help myself. I want to take care of my family.
Absolutely.
I want to be able to buy a new pair of shoes every once in a while. But I'm not afraid of putting myself out there for the benefit of other people. I think that's what we're all called to do.
Right.
To be of service and be of support to others, not just ourselves, right?
Right. And your success is going to be critiqued. Wayman thinks he's better than us. Mike thinks he's better than us. And my response to those people that said that when we went to college was, am I supposed to think I'm worse than you?
Wow.
I mean, that phrase makes no sense to me. You think you're better than us? I'm like, no, but am I supposed to be worse? I mean, if you think about, and we say that a lot in our community. Oh, he went off to college. He thinks he's better than us. Yeah. But your goal was to do the things you just said, to provide, to be able to buy that pair of shoes.
There's an end game.
Right.
And the whole idea is to better yourself so that you can help somebody else. It's not about bettering yourself so that you can look good or be better for yourself. You're being better so that you can make other people better.
Absolutely.
So they ought to clap and say,
Right.
Well done. We want you to get as good as you can get so that you can help me to be better.
What's the biblical term? Well done, my good and faithful servant.
That's right.
I remember that.
Right.
And I didn't realize I was exposed to Jewish culture even back then.
Wow.
You remember Milt Weiss?
Yes, I remember Milt Weiss.
He was the Jewish guy.
Yes.
Downtown. Across the street was Constellation.
Yes.
And everybody got their suits.
That's
but
right.
Milt would always talk to us about business and saying, and then they had Jelly Roll. They called him Jelly Roll. He was a coach.
Yeah.
And I let everything should be filtered. You know, they say that when you hear something, make sure it goes past your brain.
Ooh.
Because you got 2 ears. So it has to travel.
Ooh.
And sometimes people just hear on one ear. It can't get to the other side.
Right.
And so when somebody says, you need to sit down, and clearly I made mistakes.
Yeah.
Clearly I'm not perfect. But my grandmother said something to me, and I never forget. She said, the most perfect person in the world, and this is our culture, Baptist, was Jesus.
Right.
33 years.
Right.
She said, if he couldn't pick 12 people, what are you talking about?
That's right, Michael.
Because he had Judas, he had Peter denied him, all those things. So I don't let that negativity affect my purpose.
Right.
And my purpose is to help.
Wow.
It's that simple. I don't care if I'm working in building a car together.
Right.
I don't care if it's sweeping the steps.
Right.
I don't care if it's being president of orchards.
Right.
I still have to be the best I can be.
You know what I've noticed, Michael, is that when you have that model going for yourself, then it seems like good things come your way. You know, when you're helping other people, opportunities come your way. When you're helping other people's doors open that you didn't expect to open. That's what I find out.
That's absolutely true.
Now, that doesn't necessarily mean that you're going to be real wealthy and rich one day, but it seems like life comes at you a whole lot easier. And you're a lot happier, I think, when you have that mindset. Do you see the same thing?
Absolutely. Absolutely. And there's one guy told me something, he said, and this is the community in which I came from, he said, the only two businesses that African Americans still control are churches and barbershops. There's the only ones two that can set their time. And I'm like, he said, why haven't we progressed beyond that? What is the issue? You know, and I keep with my barber friends, they said, Mike, the worst thing that could happen to us was Michael Jordan because y'all don't have to come here anymore. Because that was the education we got. We would sit there and we'd listen. We would listen because my father said, if somebody come in with gray hair, I was the next one up.
Right.
You got to let him go.
Right. But you know what, Michael, when that comment was made about there's only barbershops and churches that we own, and I think about that, and I say, time ain't run out. The world hasn't come to an end.
No.
That doesn't mean that in some miraculous creation that God somehow will make it so that we will own a few businesses, and we will have a lot more larger piece of the pie.
Right.
I've not given up on it. You know, I feel that there's some stranger things that can happen.
Right. Well, you got your slice. You've been a part of some of the biggest organizations in the world, Steelcase. I mean, and when you walk into those doors and like you interviewed, just think about it.
Yes.
You're the president of Steelcase. I mean, those are that you can pick up and make a call. There's no more rotary phones. If someone had told us in the 70s that we'd be doing what the Jetsons did. Yeah. But we have to adapt. Like the first thing I came here and said, you got a charger. Right. Right. It's amazing, but also generational things have changed. Right. There are studies that say generations are no longer 15 years. Right. So if you can have a 6-year-old and a 1-year-old, and they will see America totally different. Right. And we saw America as a place where we can continue to prosper. Right. But we don't owe America anything. They don't owe us anything. Right. But our history is valuable. And now you've got a lot of critique about, there was a situation in Tennessee most recently where the parents are now suing the school because she had the only African-American girl in the classroom. And so they did a skit without her permission. They arrested her daughter, put her in handcuffs, and talked about her trying to change. And you should go back to your country. And that's videotaped. And it's like, why would you think about that as education? But we're in a changing times.
We're in the changing times, Michael, and people like you and people like, Lenny Wilkins.
Oh, Lenny, yeah.
People that have been through it, have overcome it, need to tell their stories. And that's the purpose of the show, to pick out the kernels of wisdom and insight from people that have endured, have overcome whatever prejudices that they've experienced, and then still are standing tall and able to set an example and raise the bar so that other people can see that it's possible, that, your life can shine brighter if you only recognize that you're going to come into a situation sometimes where life's going to hit you hard. You may not like it, but if you hold on long enough, and if you believe that it's possible, then it will turn around.
Absolutely.
And that's what I see in bringing on people like you to say to us, Wayman, we have an awesome responsibility, and I take it seriously, and I'm going to do my part in making sure that every life I touch, that they're better than they were than when they didn't know me.
Absolutely.
And I feel like my life's been enriched, since we've reconvened again with each other.
Absolutely.
Man, I told my wife, Diana, I said a few minutes ago before we started the interview, I says, you know what it feels like? She says, what? I says, it feels like home.
Yeah.
It feels like,
You made it feel that way.
Flint, it's all back again. He's coming down. He's on the phone. He was making some calls, and and we're charging your phone, and I'm moving around, and it just feels like home.
Right.
And that's how I want my life to be, man. I want to feel good about the people I associate with, and hopefully I can enrich their lives. And
you already have. I want to say that. I want to validate that. I mean, I want to pause, right? Because I think you don't realize how important that statement is to me, because that's what you did. Let me ask you a question. Who was the best cook when you grew up?
It was my mom.
Okay. But when she cooked, no one can duplicate it. So how many times did you go to a family reunion? What's the first question we used to ask? Who cooked? Who made that?
That's true. That's true.
Because that was the ingredients, and my grandma used to say, a pinch of this, a little bit of this, and my mother made the best sweet potato pie. So my wife took about 5 years, but I had to eat the ones that didn't taste as well to get there. But I couldn't tell her it didn't taste as well.
Yeah.
I told her it was good.
Yeah.
But now I can't tell if my mom made it, but she had to take the time. My mom said, no, you got to.
Yeah.
And we don't allow people to coach us. And we were coachable, like being free.
Yeah.
Today, what that lead to? That would lead to maybe a gun later.
Yeah.
I'm going to get him.
Yes.
But y'all came together and you won championships.
Yeah, it wasn't about shaming and defaming other people. It wasn't about that. My mom didn't teach us that way. My father, my aunts, the people, they loved us, man. It was about love. It wasn't about, let me have a one-up on you. Let me take the ball and let me score all the points. See, that's the stuff that was ingrained in us from childhood. And I think that what you're bringing up is what we need to reintroduce in the world today. It's not about self. It's about, others. Mm-hmm. And if we can get to the point that we all operate like that, the world would be a lot better place. We would be a lot better than what we are. We'd be, United States of America, we're very blessed, right? But just think, if the attitudes were that my life is about helping to make your life better. My job is to make sure that you become the person that you were intended to be. Absolutely. It isn't about me and what I'm supposed to be. Just think about that. If everybody thought that way and trusted and had the faith, Michael, that what goes around comes around.
Absolutely.
And as I treat you with that kindness, that love, that support, it's going to swing back my way.
Absolutely.
Right?
Absolutely.
What if everybody thought like that? Wow. What a world we live in.
And we saw that. I mean, we actually saw a world, and again, I'm not dating myself, but that was besides the North Side, South Side conflict, we were a community, a proud community. And when,
yes, we were.
When you guys won that championship, when we won that championship, just to see how many people, I mean,
the whole community
but they
came
were
out.
there. They
Yes.
supported us. And,
Yes.
you know, and it was hard back then. It was hard. The practices, the times where
Yes, it
we
was.
would have to check our own friend about something, had to run an extra wind sprint because you didn't listen.
Right.
But it was all teachable moments.
Yes.
If we took them in that way, where he trying to do this to me, he made me. No one can make you do anything.
That's right. That's right.
Choice is a very important thing in freedom.
Right. And it paid dividends.
Oh.
It paid dividends. In the end, it all came out good. And that's what people have to understand. The sacrifices that you make later on will end up being blessings one day. Michael, I'm going to ask you one final question. As you think about your life and what you've achieved and everything that's wonderful, I mean, you've had a wonderful career and a wonderful life. So how do you want your children and your family, what is it that you want them to think about you? What is the one thing that you want them to know? If you had to tell them one thing to cherish and to want to model, in fact, what would that one or two things be?
It would be my family saying he was always there for me. If I wrote a letter at Orchards, I had a saying on all of my letters. It would say, "Always for children and families."
Wow.
That's what I sign every letter, because I want people to know that is the only goal I have. I'm always going to be there.
Always for children and families.
Always for children and families. And I want my daughter to know, and this is hard, how she changed my life. The responsibility of a dad is amazing. I to today do not understand how a person can see the most precious thing that God gave us, and that's a child, to see that process with a woman and knowing that something alive inside of my wife and seeing that process. So we have to be there for them. And it's an amazing process. I mean, if you think about birth, and you had a big family. It was 4 of us.
Yeah.
Just think about what your mom experienced. And I don't understand how a man can go and see and walk away. Mm-hmm. You know, there was no friends of the court. And we had our own street discipline. You couldn't mess with my sister.
Yeah.
But so, you know, so I want them to know, I want them to say, Mike was always about children and families. And if I do that, my purpose will be, my foundation will be established. Right. And I want her to go on. And she swore she would never be a social worker.
Right.
I mean, she said, "Dad, they don't make enough money." She went to Michigan State. Yeah. And I said, "No, what you?" She came and got a master's from Michigan. Yeah. And she said, I said, she came home one day and said, "Dad," because she worked at a law firm. She said, "I want to get my master's." And I know she was about being successful. And she thought, and I said, "What are you going to get your degree in?" She said, "Social work." And I'm like, "You don't have a BSW. How are you going to get in Michigan? Michigan is the best in the country." Yeah. And my workers can't get in. 17 months later, she was walking across the stage.
Wow.
And I killed her. I said, "Did you use my resume?" But that's the kind of thing. I want her to know that there's no obstacle she can't overcome.
Yes.
And I want her to be able to achieve greatness. And I want every child, because our greatness is just manifested through our actions. Right. I mean, you talked about this environment. This used to be a basement.
Yes. Yes,
and through your vision, it's a studio.
Yes, it did.
And the bedroom becomes an office. And that transformation.
Yes.
Campy said, "What did you do?"
Yes.
Well, you did what you needed to do to accomplish what you want to accomplish. Yes. And just think about it. You didn't hurt anyone. No. You enhanced it, and now it's yours.
Yeah.
And I'm sitting here at a studio.
Having a good time in a studio.
At Wayman's house.
And I'm with Michael Williams, and he's talking about overcoming any obstacles, and don't ever think that you can't. So we're so happy that you came today. And man, I'm just overjoyed and thrilled about your life and how you've achieved success in this world. And I hope that the people out there can get something out of this. I surely did. And I want to thank you again.
My pleasure.
For coming to my studio. And we're going to say goodbye now.
Thanks.
But we'll see you in March 24th at the
Amen.
Flint Afro-American Hall of Fame induction, 1971, 1972, Flint Northern Vikings.
I look forward to it. And
yeah.
Like the song says, we come this by faith, and he never failed me yet.
Oh, man.
And I will keep moving, and I will keep following, and I don't mind saying I'm right behind you. The footprints in the sand.
Wow, man. Well,
we'll carry each other.
We're going to be right there together.
Yep.
Thank you, everybody, for joining the show today. We look forward to our next time on Fulfilling the Dream, where we talk about your life and how we can make this world a better place.
Thanks for listening to Fulfilling the Dream with Wayman Britt, the podcast that gives you courage and confidence to fulfill your dreams. Discover the riveting personal account of Wayman's journey in his book, Fulfilling the Dream, My Path to Leadership and Finding Purpose Through Serving Others. Available in print and audiobook. If you haven't done it yet, subscribe to Fulfilling the Dream wherever you get your podcast. Share this episode with others. If you think you don't know them well enough, do it anyway. Be bold. Make a connection. And if you have a powerful story to tell, let us hear it. To get connected, visit fulfillingthedreampodcast.com.